Hey everyone, it's Dominic from the Primetime Treasure eBay store and YouTube channel. Welcome back to another video. This is one that I am doing in response to a question that was posed in my Facebook group, the Facebook Reselling Resource Center. The link is in the description down below if you would like to join us over there. Over 3,000 members. And one of the original members, one of the OGs, is Laura Cohn. Laura is awesome. She's a great member, very active in the group, and had an important question that I actually have been thinking a lot about over the last few days, which has to do with marketing yourself as a reseller and coming up with the proper name for your business. And that might sound like somewhat of a simple question, but in this day and age with social media, as I'm going to show you in a few moments, it's not so simple of a thing because there's so many different variables you have to take into account and so many different ways you could choose to present yourself as a business online, and you've got to decide how exactly it is you want to position yourself and market yourself. Now, just by way of background so you understand where I'm coming from with this, I want to let you know what I am and what I am not. So I am not a world-class business executive or anything of the sort. So if you're looking for Mark Cuban or Gary Vee, go watch Shark Tank and go check out Gary Vee's YouTube channel and his videos. I highly suggest those sorts of things if you want to get that type of perspective on things. Where I'm really coming at this is from the background of someone who has run several businesses, one obviously related to reselling, and another one that I still run that is not. It's actually in the medical field, but the principles that I'm going to show you really apply to both, and that's what I want to show you. So even if you came across this video and you're just trying to come up with the name of your business, period, and it's not a reselling business, some parts of this video should be helpful to you. I come at this from the background of a board-certified neuropsychologist, and so I look at sort of the psychological angle of things. I try to think of how people think, how they process information, and how using that knowledge may be helpful in basically trying to position yourself and angle yourself in the market, and just come up with the right way to kind of market yourself. So let me actually just show you something that's actually not related to reselling, because I think still the principles would still apply in terms of how you're trying to come up with a name for a business. So one business that I run that I haven't talked about much at all here, and it's still an active business of mine, is a medical website that I run. It's a medical dictionary. Now, I started this right around the time that I started selling on eBay. I started selling on eBay in 2000, and in 2001, I started this online medical dictionary / encyclopedia, because when I was in graduate school at the time, I was learning a lot of medical terminology, and one of the things that was frustrating to me is that every time I looked up a word in a medical dictionary to try to define it, I found that it was defined by another complicated term, and so I had to look that one up. And then when I looked that one up, there were one or two other complicated terms, and I had to look those up. And it was an endless cycle. So I said, why can't somebody just create some sort of resource where all the complicated terms are kind of defined within the entry? And this way you wouldn't have to flip around so much, in all these different pages. And so that led to the idea to create this website. So I started to make this medical dictionary, and originally the intent had nothing to do with making any sort of money. Remember, this is back in 2001. There really was not much at all in terms of money-making opportunities online like there are today. So I just really started it for fun, and I had to come up with a name. Now, this is the first part that cuts across all sorts of businesses and business models and business types, regardless of the genre that you are in. The number one thing I will suggest to you is don't rush the name. Even if you think that you have got the perfect name, Now you might want to lock it down. For example, if you found that it was a name that is still available as a website name and you want to make sure you lock that down, you could lock down website names now for like $10 to $15 with companies like Namecheap, for example. So you definitely want to think about that. But in terms of settling on it and absolutely saying like this is going to be the name of your business, let it simmer for a few days and make sure you're absolutely comfortable with it. And then once you're comfortable with it, then go with it. But it's usually going to take you at least a few days to come up with the proper name. And I would also suggest kicking it back and forth with another person, such as a spouse or a really trusted friend, because that person might have some insights for you that you haven't thought of yet. Person might say, well, maybe that's not a good idea because X, Y, and Z. Or hey, yeah, that's really a great idea, but maybe you want to consider just adding this little part and something you didn't think of. So definitely use someone else to kind of kick ideas off of. That's what I did with my wife, and what we came up with for the name of this medical website encyclopedia is, here you see it, Med Friendly. So it kind of tells you a lot of what it's about in one word. It's med for medical and friendly because, well, right down below you see came up with a little slogan. And that's another thing. If you come up with a slogan for your business that's quick, short, easy for people to understand, it just absolutely encapsulates what your business is all about. Go and do that. Now, again, I'm showing you for a medical website, but you could do the same thing for your reselling business. So for here, it says where medical information is easy to understand. And then if you could come up with a little logo here that also kind of conveys the message of what your business is about, do that. So you see here, I have a smiley face, and it's a doctor. We call him Dr. Friendly. And he's got a stethoscope. It goes to a heart. Heart, you think of love, you think of friendly. But hearts are also something doctors listen to. So it all kind of ties in together. And that's what you're trying to do. You're trying to tie these different things in together. Now, you could rest assured that before we came up with that name, Med Friendly, and settled on it, we obviously checked online to make sure that that name was available as a URL. So you could go to register.com, for example, and just check and make sure that the name is available. And so that's really important. Now, if you have an eBay store, whether or not that name is something that's used as a website may or may not be something that's relevant to you. But if you really, you got to think in the future. You don't know how things are going to explode with your business. Like, for example, I had no idea when I really restarted and started modernizing my eBay selling business, which again, I started back in 2000, but then had a lot of other things that I was doing in between there with regards to my career. When I restarted a couple of years ago, I would have had no idea at that point that it would lead to something that would involve having a YouTube channel and that would involve having a Facebook group. And I actually did lock down the name for my reselling business as a URL. I haven't activated it yet or done anything with it, but I have it just in case the business continues to explode even further and I want to actually have my own separate website separate from what I have on eBay. So consider that. Think long term, plan for the future. Try to, in most situations, if you really think this is something you're going to want to really grow outside of an eBay store or a Poshmark store, an Etsy store, or an Amazon account, try to find a way to see if you can lock that name down as a URL. Because here's the problem. If you pick a name for your reselling business and then somebody else turns out has that name as a website, well, like let's say you want to name your eBay store Rusty's Antiques. Okay, well, that sounds great. That's a cool name. And then you say, wow, I really want to make my own separate website about it, but Rusty's Antiques is already taken. Well, that's a problem because now you're going to have to change the wording around a little bit and you're kind of off. You're not consistent with the name. You want to stay consistent with the name across multiple venues as much as possible. So with my oh, by the way, in case you're wondering, so how do I make money with this website? Well, you can see here I have advertisements that pop up here, and so I get money through there through Google AdSense, which became available shortly after I started my website. But that's not the main way I make money. The main way I make money is through this blog here, and you could see here that these are blog posts, and people basically submit these to me, and they pay me between $60 and $80 a pop to put these up. And you could see how many there are just in October alone. So you could do the math and add it up. You know, it's a really good way to make some additional side money, and it's great in terms of my eBay business, because if I ever have like a slow day or something, this is a way to where you could just say, all right, well, I made a bunch of money through here. So you know, I could talk about this another time in more depth in terms of how to make money through a blog like this, but you know, it's just an additional way that I could bring in money separate from the reselling business. But you know, through the way that I've marketed it and the way I've linked it up with my medfriendly.com website, that's just a way, you know, you market things. You're cross marketing using the same word and same term. So we have the MedFriendly website and the MedFriendly medical blog. So people link the two together, even though they're on separate sites. But people link the two together who come to me as clients and want, want their company featured. They do so because I've linked them both together like that. So think of things like that. If people are interested in learning more about this guest blogging stuff, let me know in the comment section. I could do a separate video on it. But let me bring you to then naming my reselling business. So, like coming up with MedFriendly, which me and my wife, Mrs. Primetime, took a few days to figure out. It was the same thing with what I eventually came up with here for my eBay store, which you see here. This is Primetime Treasure. And the reason why I chose the name Treasure, which is not uncommon of a name to use in the reselling industry. A lot of people have that term. They use treasure in some way, and there's a good reason for that. The word treasure is very broad. It can encompass anything. So it doesn't have to obviously be literally treasure, but anything that you find or that someone else sees in your store that they think is valuable could be a treasure for them. And when you go to garage sales and estate sales, people often say there's lots of treasures in there, you look for hidden treasures. So that could be a book, it could be clothes, could be comic books, it could be jewelry, it could be toys, whatever it is that you like, those could be considered treasures. So it really covers everything. Now, there can be some people who really, really want to narrow down into a niche market. So maybe all you do is sell crafts. So maybe your name is Kathy, so you're Kathy's Crafts. That certainly makes sense if you really, really want to niche down. Or my primary area that I sell in are comics. It's not all I sell, though. If you go to my store, you'll see I sell a lot of other things besides comic books, but comics is certainly something that's featured on my site. You can see here's all my categories. So if you go to comic books, you'll see that I do have a lot of comics. So one of the things that I thought of doing originally was being Dominic's Comics, and that kind of goes together and has my name in it. So a lot of people like to use their name in it somehow, but for me it kind of sounded a little bit long, plus I sell so many other things besides comics, so I thought of Dominic's Comics, collectibles, and more. But that kind of has a little bit of a ring to it, but still, the reason why I didn't do that is because I felt that once I picked that and use that word comics, that people were going to psychologically get stuck on that, and they were not going to think about the other things that I sell in my store, such as automotive items, backpacks, banners, blankets, other books, bottles and jars, camera equipment, that sort of stuff. So you have to be aware of that, because it's very, very important to diversify when you're reselling online, because whatever market you're in that you've niched, it may be very good and very profitable for you right now, but you don't know what's going to happen with regards to market forces and if it's going to turn on you or not. So the craft market might be awesome right now, but in 2 years, for whatever reason, it might crash. So you don't want to then be stuck necessarily as Kathy's Crafts. Or if you are, you're going to have to then branch out and maybe rename it Kathy's Crafts and More. But then again, as I mentioned, there could be a limit to that based on how people are going to perceive you. If you want to be Kathy's Crafts and More, and then you're selling, music albums, that's going to probably be confusing to people. So keeping it broad is an approach that a lot of people like to use. Now, a lot of people have the word treasure in there, so you've got to figure out, what do you want to do? How do you want to put your name in there? So, if your name starts with a T, that might be great. So if you're Tim, Timothy's Treasures or Teresa's Treasures, that might work. For me, Dominic's Treasures didn't seem to have like a great ring to it, so I tried to figure out some other term to use, and I was, going back and forth for days. And one day, I just told myself it'll just come to me when it happens. And I was talking to my wife, and I said something in conversation that I thought was, a good point, or was, interesting. And so I said, "That's prime time." And then she looked at me, and then I looked at her, and I said, "Wait a minute, prime time." I said, "Prime time treasure." She's like, "Yeah." Well, actually, it was supposed to be prime time treasures, but the S was already taken by somebody else, so I just did Primetime Treasure. And that's how we came up with the name. I looked up to see if the website was available. It was. I actually just renewed it yesterday for another year. If you go to that primetimetreasure.com, you're not going to see anything because I haven't developed that yet. That's something that's potentially planned for the future. But again, you see there, just thinking ahead for that, you never know. So if you look at let's take a look at what some of the bigger name people in the reselling industry have done with regards to naming either their store or their persona, their YouTube presence. Because, see, this is why I've been thinking about this more over the last few days. You've got to decide, and you don't have to instantly figure it out because you don't know how things are going to evolve. But one of the things you want to consider, which I actually did not when I first started this and came up with Primetime Treasure. Again, when I first came up with this, I had zero plans of doing a YouTube channel. None. I had no plans of doing a Facebook group or anything like that, or being any kind of persona. And you want to think about that actually, because if you have any inkling of doing anything like that, you also want to see if you can name your business some way around a name or a persona that you could identify with. Now, you could break it off and have it be related, and they don't always have to be the same thing. So, for example, let's look over here. We've got Rockstar Flipper, okay? Pretty much everyone knows who he is. He's got an awesome YouTube channel, great presence. You could see there's 74,000 subscribers, almost 75,000 people. That's a great presence. And if you go to his store, though, his store is not called Rockstar Flipper. His store actually is called Treasure Chest Florida. So you see there, he used the word treasure. He's one of the top people who does anything with regards to reselling. He's got that treasure name in there. Now, that doesn't mean you have to name your store something with treasure. I'm just saying that's something to consider. As a broader name like that. And again, you could see there, his YouTube presence, though, has a separate name. It's not even anything related. He does not have his YouTube channel named Treasure Chest Florida. Okay, now that's different from me, in which I have my YouTube channel named Primetime Treasure. The problem is, when I am announcing myself, I'm announcing myself as Dominic from the Primetime Treasure YouTube channel, but I don't have a name like Rockstar Flipper or anything like that. Now, that's something I'm considering developing, and I'm actually curious If anyone out there has any ideas, there's been some things I've been kicking around to kind of use for myself. I want to keep the name Prime Time somehow and integrate it into the name. So there's lots of things, you know, there's, you could say Primetime Picker or Primetime Flipper or Primetime Hustler. There's all sorts of names, and so I'm curious, see if there's anything you out there are thinking about in terms of what might be a good name. So I'm kind of mulling that over, but I would say probably the best play on words I've seen out there. Much credit to Steve Rakin, who I just talked with yesterday, by the way, and on by text. We're trying to set up a time for me to be on his YouTube channel, so be on the lookout for that. I'll announce that when that comes up. Same thing with Rockstar Flipper. I'll probably be on there in November, so look forward to some announcements there. But Steve, you know, look at Steve. Steve's the only reseller who has over 100,000 subscribers at his YouTube channel. And one reason is he is an amazing marketer. And we could do a whole separate video on how to market your channel. I'm just going to barely cover that here today. I'm more focused on the name, but you know, Steve's name, Steve Rakin. Well, look at that. Look how creative that is. Rakin Profit. You know, people love, they want to be raking in profit, and he took his name, Rakin, and linked it to bringing in money. So that's a great name. Now, I'm not exactly sure what the name of Steve's eBay store is, because Steve doesn't link to it here for because he found that there were some people that were, you know, kind of putting in fake bids to his eBay store and, you know, kind of bothering him, kind of trolling, that kind of thing. So he doesn't even link to it here. So I'm actually not sure, but I doubt it's called Raking Profits. But so he probably has his own name for that. And a lot of times people will separate it out. Like, let's take another example here. One of my absolute favorites, I love Craigslist Hunter. If you are not watching him, and that includes everyone I'm featuring here, you definitely should go check them out. But definitely go check out Craigslist Hunter. He's incredible. He's got 80,000 subscribers here on his YouTube channel. But his store, basically his story is he runs a retail store in Chicago. And you know, he does a lot of reselling, sells a lot of his stuff not only in the store, but he sells a lot on eBay. He makes a small fortune on there, or a large fortune. He does very, very well. You should go check out his numbers. Sometimes he's making $5,000 a day on eBay. So it's absolutely crazy how amazing he's doing. But if you look at the name of his store, the name of his store is not Craigslist Hunter. The name of his store is The Trading Post. Awesome name. I mean, you even look at the pictures, it looks like a trading post in there. You know, especially over here, this picture. It's a great name. You know, people who are trying to, you know, want to do buy, sell, trade. What better name could you come up with than a trading post? So, you know, and also you could see here for, you know, for his name, for his URL, tradingpost.com obviously would have been taken. So what he did is he just added to the city where he's located. So he's Trading Post Crystal Lake. So that's another thing you could consider. If the URL is taken up, add your city name in there or something else similar, maybe your state, and so you can still keep that name that's core to your identity and keep it in your URL. You want to try to keep those things consistent. Now, absolutely one of the best people out there in terms of marketing, for sure, is Rally Roots. So they are a reselling couple out of Florida. They actually don't live too far away from Rockstar Flipper, who's also in Florida in the Tampa area. But they do an amazing job at marketing. Now, their name, Rally Roots, instantly you see that, you might not say, okay, well, does that make a lot of sense to me in terms of you know, why they named it that? But you quickly learn that when you go to their channel, that that's Ryan and that's Ali, so they're Rally Roots. And as soon as you go on there, you could see that they instantly have a video on there in which they're introducing themselves. So they're instantly marketing to you the moment you get on the channel. I mean, you could see here, I'm gonna just press play and you could see this.
What's going on, guys? I'm Ryan Roots.
And I'm Allie Roots.
And together we are Rally Roots. Do you get it? Like Ryan plus Allie equals Rally.
Yeah.
So if you've never...
Now, that's important what they just did there, okay, from a marketing perspective. You know, what you quickly see the moment you get on there, first of all, you identify with the name, you know why they call themselves that, and you start to identify with them as a couple. And a lot of these people who have successful YouTube channels, you look at the most successful people, the name of their channels are ones that are associated with a name. So, you know, Rally Roots, Craigslist Hunter, Rockstar Flipper, Rakin' Profit has his name in it in some way. So that's an important thing. You know, Bonafide Hustler is another one. I mean, you could just keep going. There's Side Hustle Pros. That's another one as well. So most people who have a successful YouTube presence, they've linked their name into it somehow. Now that's a limitation for me as the Primetime Treasure, and this doesn't have my YouTube channel right here, but my YouTube channel is the Primetime Treasure YouTube channel, as you know, because you're at it right now. So that's something that I've got to kind of navigate around in terms of, you know, coming up with a way to market it more effectively, because that's one of the reasons I feel that, it's not the only reason, but I think it's one reason why my channel, while I've done well in 10 months as having 1,000 subscribers, if you look at Rally Roots, for example, they have, I think, around 400 videos. Right now I've got around 245, but they've been at it for over about 2 years now, and they've got 44,000 subscribers. Now, it's not just identifying as a person. One of the things that you do with regards to marketing is you've got to be smart in terms of how you're doing your videos, for example, how professional they are. I certainly have a long way to go with that. Right now, you know, I'm just using a webcam and, you know, some basic tools, you know, in terms of getting my videos up. But, you know, just take a look at this, for example. This is like their most recent video. Just watch this for a second in terms of the professionalism of the video. Watch this. Just for a few moments.
Most people live like these elephants.
Ad for a second.
Over the past year, I've helped thousands of people leave their elephant lives.
So check this out for a second.
After my run, I decided to call one of my best friends and ask him
because I was watching some of this yesterday.
Last
So,
pretty much everything
day.
went wrong the first half of my day. Last night I decided that I would wake up early and get the day started off right. So I set my alarm for 7 a.m. but I ended up sleeping in and I woke up 2 hours late.
See, now look at this. This is a lot different than what most YouTubers are doing in reselling, okay? Look at all these little clips that are being brought in. I mean, it makes it like a movie practically. Now, this has got to, I would think, involve a lot of time in terms of putting this together, but this is not someone just sitting there like I am talking to the screen. I mean, just watch a little bit more.
I went and checked the mail and I was greeted by a wonderful bill from the Department of Revenue. But one thing that always cheers me up is some great coffee. So I made myself some Rally Roots roast. And
okay, now, hold on. Let's go back to that a second. What did he make himself? He made himself Rally Roots Roast. Okay, so they use their name to actually, you know, market a product. Okay, so that's something important as well. You know, you got to think of how you use your name and how to market it. And there you go. They actually inserted the product in the video. Smart thing to do, right? So this
and I sat down to get some emails answered. But then I made one wrong move and I spilled my coffee all over Allison's favorite pillow. So I had to try my best to wash the coffee out. At this point...
Okay, so you get the point. You know, depending on how creative that you can be and how much time and how much, you know, technological know-how you could bring to your internet presence, you know, you could really do a lot of things in terms of marketing your site and marketing your brand. So going back full circle in terms of coming back with the name, you know, if this is my store right here, Primetime Treasure eBay store, you know, it's got to be something, I would say, Well, when I say it's got to be, I mean, that's my opinion. I mean, you could, obviously, there's different ways of going about it. But what I like to try to tell people is try to come up with some kind of name, kind of like Primetime Treasure, kind of like Med Friendly. It doesn't have to be one word, but something that in some way kind of conveys what you are about just by hearing the name. Just by hearing the name. Now, again, there's exceptions to this. So, for example, you might maybe you have 3 kids or 4 kids, and you want to use their initials as part of what you name your business. So maybe your business, you know, you have 4 kids, their initials are A, C, D, and L. So you want to be ACDL something. Well, okay, that's fine to do, but make sure that something has to do with your business. So if you sell antiques, you're ACDL Antiques. So, and then you explain, by the way, in terms of marketing, what your business is all about right up front, why you named it ACDL. So maybe someone goes on to your store, they see something about your 4 kids. Maybe they don't necessarily have to see your 4 kids, but they see you talking about your 4 kids, or see you mentioning them in some way. Bring that home, bring that message home, allow people to relate to your brand in some way. Just like Rally Roots did when you go right on their page and they're instantly telling you about who they are and what they're all about. And you know, you could see here, this goes to what I'm talking about. They actually then, separate from their YouTube channel, they actually have rallyroots.com, and you go there, and what are they doing there? Well, they're marketing things about themselves. So for example, they're putting in a mentoring course where you could go there and, you know, you pay them a fee, it's $200, and they will mentor you with regards to reselling. And so it's courses, and it's you know, communication with them, that sort of thing. So you know, that just goes to show you why, again, it's important to try to get that URL knocked down, you know, that website address, because, you know, if someone else had taken Rally Roots, then, you know, they could still do it, but they'd maybe have to be Rally Roots Tampa or something like that, which is not as ideal. You want to try to have it as short as possible so that people could just go on, type it, and find it real quick. So you want to be able to say the name to people, go to Primetime Treasure. And it's got to look right too. When you type it in, it's got to look right. So that's another thing. You have to see how it looks. Does it look weird the way you write it or not? So these are all things that you have to consider. But you know, try as much as possible to come up with a name that in some way you could quickly either explain to someone, or they could figure out why it is you named it that. Primetime Treasure, Med Friendly, you know, Rake and Profits, that kind of thing. Treasure Chest Florida for Rockstar Store, that sort of thing. Now, you know, you could also do things like are you know, really creative. Like there was someone in my Facebook group who had some business, and I can't remember exactly what the business was, but it was something about had the shoes and automotive stuff related to it, and was called like 18 wheels and high heels, or high heels and 18 wheels. So you could do like rhymes and stuff like that to you know, try to make a kind of creative linkage to whatever it is that you're selling, and maybe attaching it to your identity in some way, you know, in terms of whatever kind of persona it is that you want to put out there. Again, nothing wrong with using your name in terms of attaching it. So, you know, if you want to be you know, Laura, if you want to use your name some way in it, you could choose to use your first name, you could choose to use your last name, but, you know, in that situation, try to be creative with it. So, you know, keeping it bland is probably not the best thing. So Laura sells a lot of automotive products, and just calling it Laura's Automotive, I mean, you could do that. It makes some intuitive sense, but it's not anything that really kind of draws you in. You know, that's kind of just very kind of standard, and sort of how a lot of people might name an automobile, and, you know, like a car store, you know, like, you know, Bob's Auto Store, something like that. You know, you want to try to break out from the pack a little bit, so come up with something a little bit different. There's all sorts of angles you could come at it. These are just a few ideas, and I wanted to, you know, talk to you about not only coming up with the name for your reselling business, but also thinking about how to market yourself in this whole new social media outlet that you have out there. I mean, it's a way in which you market your product. You want to think about having an Instagram account. You want to think about possibly having a Twitter account, although Instagram is much better for reselling business marketing than Twitter is. You want to think about having a Facebook presence, all these sorts of things, and you want to kind of link them up with your name. So again, I'm going to do something with Prime Time in terms of identifying myself better, and so I can market my presence better. Because you could see here from my logo, what did I choose? I chose a treasure chest. But problem with this is, if you go to my Instagram account, which I don't know if I could bring up here, actually, you could probably see here in the top corner my face. Here's my Instagram. Let's see if I could bring my Instagram account up, which is the Primetime Treasure account. Oh, here it is. Oh no, that's Steve. Oh, that's just seeing Steve. Let's see. Here we go. Okay, so I had a treasure chest here previously, and I should not do this video without mentioning him. So let me bring him up real quick. Wade from Wade's Ventures. Okay, again, another person who has their name linked up with their business. This is Wade's Ventures YouTube channel right here. Great guy. Definitely got to go check out his website. Very, very popular guy. He's got 5,000 subscribers to his YouTube channel here, and he's got a great eBay store as well. If you go over to, that's his YouTube channel. If you go over to his Instagram account, let's go to Wade's Instagram account as well. You'll see here how he identifies with people by putting his face in here. Wade called me one day because I appeared on his show, and he said, hey, I like the name Primetime Treasure, but you've got to get that treasure chest off of your Instagram account because people cannot relate to a treasure chest. I mean, they know what it is, but if you're trying to bond with people on an Instagram account, which is much more personal, you've got to put your face out there somehow and try to have a white background. It pops out better. So that's what I did. I changed it to my face, picture of me personally, and made a white background. So that's why you see that now. I got rid of the treasure chest. But on Instagram, let's see if we could bring up Wade's Instagram here. There we go. So you can see Wade's doing the same thing where he's got his face right here, right inside that white background. And I think Wade's been on Instagram for also under a year or so. He's already got 16,000 followers. He's very active on it, markets himself a lot on it. And you could see here in his link tree, he did a really great job in terms of marketing all sorts of products that, not every one of these he'd literally make a commission on, but a lot of them, he will. So he's done, from what I've seen, the best job at marketing through the link tree side of things. So this is a way you could just put a little link into your bio and it brings up all these other links. If we go to Wade's store, his eBay store, you could see here he's got the same name. So he's Wade's Ventures there. He's Wade's Ventures on YouTube. He's Wade's Ventures on Instagram. He's got brand consistency. So that's real important. Not only that, he's got a name associated with it. It's Wade. Okay? So if I could go back and I could change things, one of the things I like to do with this channel is tell people sometimes learn from me. I would most likely see if there's some way that I could integrate a personal name into the, not necessarily my name, but maybe not literally Dominic or not literally my last name, but something that identifies with a persona. Because now I'm going to have to create that. It's not going to fly forever if I'm going to really grow this channel to always be Dominic from the Primetime Treasure YouTube channel. It just takes way too long to say. Again, I need something else, and that's why I'm reaching out to all of you, over 1,100 subscribers, plus new people coming into the channel every day. So if you have any ideas, drop them down below. I might take a poll in my Facebook group in the coming days to see what people think about you know, a new name. We're still going to keep Primetime Treasure. The name you pick has to have Primetime in it. Wade, when I was on his show, nicknamed me Primetime. I never thought that that would be a nickname I would have, but Wade called me that, called me Prime sometimes. So a lot of people now start, you know, referencing me in that way, Primetime. So, but I want to be Primetime something. So I don't just want to be Prime Time. So, you know, we'll see. We'll see how that evolves. A lot of these things with business evolve in ways you never thought would happen. So that's just part of the fun and part of the roller coaster ride. I hope you found this video helpful and that it gives you some ideas and sort of coming up with a name for yourself and your business. Remember, make sure you give it a few days, kick it around a little bit, kick it around with a spouse, check out for that URL, see if it's available, and consider how you would market yourself not only on eBay or Poshmark or Etsy or Amazon, but how you would think of potentially marketing yourself down the road across these other social media channels. With that, I've got some other things to do, and I hope you found the video helpful. If so, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel. I've got a lot of catching up to do. I got, you know, need 99,000 more people to catch up to Steve Rakin, so help me out there. I've got a while to go. Make sure you come to my Facebook group. The link to it's down below, and follow me on Instagram as I try to rebuild that account. It's prime_time_treasure. Hope to see you there, everyone. Take care.